Okay, so good evening here in Spain. It's actually very dark, it's 10:30. First thing, very grateful to the organization for allowing me to finally deliver this talk. So apparently I was scheduled to give it yesterday night, which I totally missed. And I was totally away from my keyboard at 10:30. But then I'm gonna do it now, so I guess it's okay. So I'm going to talk about how we can do workflow automation in Perl without using any kind of container, which I guess is kind of a good thing. It's a good thing for several reasons. First is because we can use Perl in basically every kind of a workflow we could think about. Second thing, because if you're not using anything that's external to what you already have on whatever is running the workflow, then you save time. And saving time is essential in workflow automation. A little bit about myself. So right now I'm 56, so I've been programming essentially Perl for half my life, since I was 28 or so, 93. Lately I'm working with Raku mainly, but that doesn't mean that I've left Perl. As a matter of fact, I still maintain a series of Perl modules and Perl scripts, which I use for everyday work or doing any kind of stuff. So I'm still doing Perl. And the main reason I started to use Perl in automation was basically because I just wondered, okay, so I can use Bash in workflow automation if I need to some task, like, any kind of thing like copying things or removing things or whatever. Can I do something more complex with Perl? And then all of a sudden I checked in a workflow, I wrote Perl, I said, so it's there, so I can use it. So I started to use it. And then in retrospective, I really found out that it wasn't so far-fetched to think that Perl was going to be there. First and foremost, basically Perl and Git are very, very close friends. They are big and close friends, and they are close together. A part of Git is written in Perl. And actually, whenever you download a repository from, or you initiate a repository with Git, it's going to include some Perl code in your repository, right? So there is going to be a series of examples which are stored in .git/hooks/preperl.message.sample. That's written in Perl. There are no examples I think there are no examples in Python or in PHP. There are several shell scripts, and there are examples in Perl like this one. This one is actually a good one. Probably you are better than myself at this, but I really had to look this up. So this is actually using a regex flip-flop, which is the dot thing. So it's kind of printing a commit message. So this is a hook for commit messages. It's printing the commit message only if it doesn't have this kind of sentences at the beginning or at the end. So that's kind of a nice thing. So not only it's Perl, it's also nice Perl, and it's magic Perl. Continuous integration runs in containers. So you could think, well, maybe Git needs to be there, but maybe it's not really there. It's outside, and actually continuous integration is running in some containers. So maybe the containers don't contain Perl. So do they? Well, in general, yes, they do, for several reasons. For instance, if you look into Travis, you will see that you will probably see the example, and the example will show you something like this, right? So you select a language in the first line. You say, I'm going to use Perl 5.22, and then you do some before installations and previous to installation. This is actually a Travis configuration for checking the spelling of Markdown text, which is something I use very usually in all the things I write. So then you have to use CPAN to install some things, like for instance, test text. This highlighting is really weird. I don't really know how John is highlighted here. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The thing is that you have to use CPAN to install things. But of course, you say, I'm choosing the Perl runner. So it's only natural that I have CPAN and then tap harness is installed because I have it installed, and so on and so forth. So maybe Perl is not installed after all, but yes, it is. So if you just say sudo required, which means that you're going to have superuser privileges inside the container, and then you say language minimum, you can still use CPAN. So CPAN is in the minimal container. It's the minimal container is essentially the base Ubuntu machine in this case, which is the default machine in Travis, right? So you can just say, okay, so CPAN is there. That implies that Perl is also there, of course. So I can just install wherever I want. But of course, I need to use sudo because this is a system Perl. It's not installed through some Perl brew, whatever. This is a system Perl. So eventually we run the script, which is pretty much the same thing. But if you look a little bit further, you will see that tap harness is also there. As a matter of fact, it's now in the documentation. It's now in the documentation because I added a pull request to the Travis documentation telling them, Travis is there. I mean, you can find it in Travis. You have tap harness and you have CPAN and this version or whatever. Also, you see that the default version they have is 5.22.1. This is the Xenial or Genial runner, and this is the default version they're using. So that means that if you are going to test for that version, you're good to go. If you want to test anything else, 5.24, 5.26, 34, whatever, you have to install it. You have to use the runner, the Perl runner. But if the only thing you want to do is, you want to run some tests, or you have something installing, something that uses Perl, but is not really, you're not really interested in testing the whole version, like myself, for instance, I'm testing spelling. It's okay, you can do it, and it's pretty fast. You don't even have to set up any kind of runner. It's going to be run. So even the minimal amount of time that Travis usually takes, which is around 15 seconds, is going to be reduced to like 8 seconds. So you can run a workflow in a few seconds. But there are even more goodies. Good thing is that you're using the system Perl. So that means that you can install any kind of Perl module in the system. So why not install everything you need from the repository, right? That's going to be also pretty fast. It's going to be faster, as a matter of fact, than using CPAN. Why? Because it's packaged, it's tested, everything. You don't need to worry about that. So you just install everything you need using the equivalent package. As a matter of fact, there's a very nice module in CPAN which tells you what is the package equivalent to a CPAN module. And then, again, you just run your script for doing that. So you see that this can become very, very incredibly fast by just using the Perl that's running in the runner, right? This is Xenial. Actually, you could think that if I remember correctly, in the latest version of Ubuntu, in the latest LTS version of Ubuntu, they don't include Perl by default. So you could think maybe they don't have Perl, but yes, they do, because again, it's tied to Git. So they need Perl to run Git correctly and to run everything that's related to Git. So, I mean, it's there. Why not use it, right? Again, in this case, I need to use my own module, which is test text, which is not, maybe it's packaged for Debian. I haven't really checked it. But anyway, in this case, I need to use sudo because it's a system Perl. It's not installed by Perl. So, but there are even more things that you can do. You can say, okay, so why do I need to install this test text every single time. The only thing I have is a test, right? It's a short script. This is what the script does. So it's, a couple of functions. Why don't you bundle all modules? So use Fatpack or Carton or whatever. I usually use Fatpack. So instead of installing any module that's not installed by default, you bundle everything into a single script. And the only thing you need to do is to run that script. That's already in the repository, incredibly fast. You say 1 second, another second, and everything is going to be incredibly fast. Use something like that. So you have your test in some place called SRC or whatever, and then you generate it with just check. That's in the repository. Use it. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 1,000 lines of code, a couple of kilobytes. It's very fast. It's something. The only thing you need to do is you have to remember to regenerate it every time you change it. So in this case, we install all the prerequisite modules, and then before install, look, no CPAN. We don't need it. We are not going to use it, right? And then eventually we run the same test. So this is good for Travis. It's in this case, it's 4 times as fast, and take into account that it was very fast to start with. We are doing a very simple test here. But there's some trouble with Travis. I don't know if you have had trouble lately, but I always run out of credits because all of a sudden there's something that doesn't download or whatever. So it's waiting there for one hour, and then the whole hour gets billed to the account. So I run out of credits. So maybe you're fond of GitHub Actions or anything like that. Let's see what happens in GitHub Action. So it happens pretty much almost exactly the same. You just use a runner like Ubuntu latest, and that's one is going to include Perl. So you again install all the CPAN modules you need in as package as Perl packages. Then you prepare for test. And again, I'm using the system Perl. There's no magic. There's no container magic here. It's just a system Perl. And then eventually I run whatever test I need to make is also installed by default. So it's something that we can do straight away. But in GitHub Action is even better because GitHub Action is more general than Travis. Travis is for CI/CD. GitHub Action is a workflow running environment, so you can run any kind of workflow. And one of the things that was there is that you could use JavaScript as a shell, and also Python. Python is not so common; you don't see it so often, but you can see it, right? And of course, by default, it's run by the shell. So I said, so maybe I can use Perl as a shell. Again, yes, you can. So you just say shell :Perl 0 between curly braces. What it's going to do is going to create a temporal file with whatever you put there, and it's going to run it as a Perl script. So you can put your Perl script right there. You don't need to do a difficult one-liner or whatever. It's syntactically it's a bit nicer. And then there is this module, GitHub Action, which I publish in CPAN. And you can do stuff that you usually do in GitHub Action. Like for instance, set the value of an environment variable, set the output for a step, things like that, instead of printing to console and then using this funky syntax with double colon and all the things. No, you say set them, right? So this is exactly the same, the name that you will find in the GitHub Action documentation, and you have the whole span, the whole 9 yards of comments that are there. Actually, Gabor Sabo was helping me with this, and so now it's quite complete, and it's very good to go, right? But there is also another goodie, and this is also in Travis, pretty much everywhere. Of course, all the modules that are installed by default with Perl are there, but there are some other modules that are there also, which are not installed by default. most of them, they are related to things that that the system needs, like for instance, things for installing packages or things like that. But for instance, this module, which is a very simple and in fact very lenient YAML parser, it's already installed. So if you need to do some YAML parsing or to get some YAML file into your program, you can do it straight away with this module, which is installed already. And that's a good thing. As a matter of fact, this is something I use in one of the workflows I've created for my classes, where I have all kind of workflows for grading the assignments of pre-grading the assignments of students actually. So you can, it's used to check whether the syntax of any YAML file that's installed is okay. Although, as I said, it's quite lenient with that kind of thing, right? So the only thing you need to do is for your script, it needs to use some environment variable, which is environment variable that you will set from the GitHub action, right? So since it's running inside a GitHub action, it's not going to use the command line arguments. So whatever you need you need the script to do, you need to put it into environment variable. That environment variable can be set for another step, or can be set directly in the configuration of the step, right? So the thing with this GitHub Actions is that it makes that kind of thing easier for doing this administrative stuff that you need to do in the step. For instance, in this case, using GitHub Actions, what I do essentially is to examine something that's in the file. So I examine some configuration file, then I check if some JSON is using that configuration file, and then eventually I set the output of the step to some value, and that's going to be read by another step, which can be written in Perl or in what is called GitHub script, which is TypeScript along with some GitHub objects. So it makes very easy, very straightforward. You can use all the Perl you know. You have all the regular expressions, many modules, pretty amazing. Again, that was a thing that was not actually in GitHub. So this is some pull requests that I had to do in the GitHub documentation. This is written in this, how is it called? This Windows shell? No, it's called PowerShell. Yeah. So I needed to write a small PowerShell thing. And as a matter of fact, they generate the documentation automatically. So they run these scripts, and those scripts generate all the markdown that's then published to the GitHub Action documentation. So this is what I needed to do there. So that was hidden. So it was there. You could use it, but it was documented. So if it's there and it's not documented, it's as good as hidden. So I tried to do some systematic work of bringing this up to light, so that everyone could use it. So that's something that will make me and the Perl community quite happy. So again, there are many other things that you can do. You could say, for instance, what happens with GitLab pipelines, what happens with CircleCI runners or shippable or whatever. Can you work with them in Perl? I haven't checked them. You probably can, but where I'm totally sure that you can use them is in Docker Hub. So Docker Hub, everyone uses it for creating or for compiling, creating the Docker images, which of course that's a purpose. But they have also hooks. So they have a runner, and you can create just scripts with a name, with a certain name, like pre this or post that or whatever, and they are going to be run automatically if they are in the hooks. So eventually those hooks provide they exit with 1 or they exit with 0, and then if they exit with 1, all the workflow will be interrupted. They sit with 0. Docker Hub will go to the next, right? So let's try and do that. Let's try and automate Docker Hubs. For instance, there's something that lots of people keep asking all the time. So why does Docker Hub have to build all my Docker files every time I change one line in the README? So, you know, Docker Hub takes a long time, sometimes 1 hour, sometimes 2 hours, depends on the load. But you would need to do something as easy as saying, okay, so look at the repository. Did I change the Docker file? Just say, okay, build it. Did I change anything else, like a README or whatever? Then don't touch it. I don't need this, right? So no big deal, just stop, right? You can do this with this incredibly simple script, which is written using the system Perl in Docker Hub, which of course also includes Git, because if you install Git, you've got this Git module, right? And you can run this command and just look at the difference between head, I mean, look whatever was contained in the last commit. Of course, it's only looking at the last commit. You know, you can make it a little bit, actually try to find a way of making this kind of more intelligent by looking at all the commits since the last build. I couldn't do that because it's almost impossible. I mean, you can do it. There's probably more than one way to do it because, you know, this is Perl, but it wasn't easy. So I said, okay, but don't mind. I'm not going to keep the last commit that was built. Anyway, as you can see, just a matter of checking the whatever difference is in the last commit, and then say, okay, now Dockerfile modifying the last commit. Die, you exit with value 1. If there is nothing called Dockerfile, because every Dockerfile is going to be called Dockerfile, or it's going to have the Dockerfile extension. So if there is no Dockerfile in the last commit, I will not build that. There is also a problem with this, and the problem is that it exits with failure. So you're going to be sent an email that says, your build has failed. That's not nice. I have raised the issue also in the Docker Hub community, but there's no easy way of doing that. So there's no way of telling Docker Hub, no, stop it. No, I just don't want this to be built. Either you succeed or you fail. There's nothing in between. Again, I had to add this information to the documentation of Docker Hub, which is also in GitHub. I mean, at least it's a good thing that all the documentation is in GitHub. So if you want to change something, you just do it. You have to wait for it to be accepted. In fact, it was accepted after some time. So you can now see this kind of thing, right? So before it said that you could only run shell scripts, which is right there in the line 55. Now it says that, you know, what's hidden up to now. It says that you can run anything that's installed in the default runner. And you also have Python, for instance. And you could say, why not use Python? Well, if you want to use Python, you will have to either import some Git module, or just, you know, create some way of running Git as an external command and then capture the output, stuff like that. Not nice, really not nice. You can do it with Perl. You can do it now, and you can do it without installing any kind of thing, without having any kind of dependency. And I would say that in a very dependable way. So it doesn't look as if Perl is going to disappear from those runner anytime soon. So at the end of the day, I would say that Perl is a hidden gem of test deployment automation that right now it's no longer hidden. So it's revealed. So it's there in the documentation. If people checks out the documentation, they will say, so you can use a shell script, you can do that, and you can also use Perl, right? So use it, because unlike Bash, it's a real language. So I mean, Bash is incredibly powerful. But if you want to do something like capitalize a string or something like that, you have to use some obscure syntax that makes no sense at all. As a matter of fact, I think that making something lowercase is something like comma, comma, dollar, curly braces, name of the variable, whatever. So use Perl, because unlike Bash, it's a real language. Unlike Bash, it's always there. It's really, really always there. As I have said, I didn't check if it's in CircleCI or in Azure pipelines or whatever, but I'm almost certain that's going to be there. And you also have package modules, and you can bundle scripts. So you got everything. Use Perl in your next CI and CD workflows. And that's it. No other containers are needed. Thanks a lot. And again, thanks for the chance to give this talk eventually. Thank you very much for being there. Thank you.
JJ, I think that your slot goes for another 25 minutes if you want to.
I can barely hear you. It's probably my fault. Can you please say that again?
Yes, I'm sorry. I just had to move outside because of the air conditioning problem. Your slot here is for another 25 minutes. The other slot is in 2 half-hour sections, but you're a full hour. So you can take extended questions.
Okay. No problem. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Well, while people are getting their thoughts together, because it always takes people a while to get their questions together after a presentation, let me say that this is a mysterious area to me. I know that there's a lot that's going on in that, but I'm not a DevOps person. I've been wanting to dive into it. And knowing that Perl is going to be everywhere that I am, it makes me more likely to explore this area. So thank you for that.
Thank you. There are never too many JJs. Yeah, there are like 3 JJs in the Perl community. This is J. Altria, the other is J. Allen, and me. So thank you for being there.
JJ, the thing I'm thinking about is that I don't do Perl lately. Like last 2 years, I probably done no Perl at all except for the build subsystem for Raku. And therefore, I'm more interested in testing those modules I have in Raku. And I wonder which CIs currently have prepackaged Raku for testing.
Yes. You have you can use Raku in many different ways. You can use either a prepackaged Raku star. There is also a set of Docker containers which I maintain, and they are usually updated up to the latest version. So you can use that either in Travis or anywhere else. And I also have an experimental set of Docker containers which are much slimmer, very, very small, which you can also use. So, I mean, you got several different ways of using Raku in any of these. If you want to check out an example, you can look at any of my modules. So I use my own Docker. I mean, I ate my own dog food. So I use my own containers in my own Raku module. So if you look up, in some cases Travis, I'm still keeping Travis in some cases, and in other cases .github/workflows, whatever, you will see that I use them all the time. And it's pretty compact. It's pretty convenient. They are relatively small. They are like, if I remember correctly, something like 100 megabytes. So that takes around 8-10 seconds to download. Doesn't have a lot of overhead, but yes, you can use Raku and Raku perfectly. And I also, as a matter of fact, I use this Perl runner to compile the Raku containers because I needed to do some tagging magic. So instead of every time there is a new release, I have to do by hand everything. So what I do is I have a Perl script that looks at the tags of the base container, which is Alpine Raku, and then it builds all the containers with the same tags for the test Raku test container. And that, actually, the example I just showed is actually from there. So everything is automated that way. So every time all the Raku containers is updated, it triggers build in the Raku test containers, which also includes Ceph and things like that, and it builds all the different tags that are there. So I don't have to provide a Docker file for every single Raku for every single container. I do Raku Docker container generation automation. I do it in Perl. This is very nice if you think of it.
Question. You mentioned a cross-reference module that says for this CPAN module, what is it going to be in a distribution? But I missed what that mechanism is. How can I find that information?
I think that Debian has an API. So I'm not totally sure it's an API. Maybe it's just scraping. But essentially what it does is it looks the name of the files in the CPAN module, and then looks it up. Look in the using the API. So it says, okay, so if you have something like, I don't know, Moo, for instance, it looks up Moo in the Debian search engine API, and it returns a result. And then you can use directly the result. This is extremely, I was actually thinking about upgrading it to do this, because it would be extremely convenient to just say, install this. If you got the Debian package, use that. If you don't have that, then use the next best thing, which is using the module from CPAN, right? So that would be really, really extremely convenient. And that's also something that other languages don't have. So, that would make creating CI workflows for any kind of module extremely easy and extremely fast.
Thank you.
So I guess that's it. I ran out of time, actually. Did I? Yeah. No, I still have like 6 minutes. So if you want to ask anything else.
Yeah, you've still got time.
You know, I don't know if you can still share your screen, but I think a lot of us have done a lot of Perl, but not so much with GitHub Actions. And it would be interesting to see some sort of live demo of it actually operating in GitHub.
Yes, I'll try to do that. Let me fire up the Firefox, because I don't have it here.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Let me see. For instance, I will start to share my screen right now. Let me try again. Yeah, this is the thing.
Has it changed away from host mode or something? Maybe you're not. Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah. I use this quite extensively in my classes. So this is a repository for a class I teach, which is called Virtual Infrastructure. So I got a whole. Actually, I wrote most of the things here. So you go to GitHub and then workflows, and then there is this big workflow, which essentially goes to the student repository and checks things, right, using the GitHub API and some other things. But you see that, for instance, not this one. Sorry, this is this one. So it's doing some stuff in JavaScript, but then a bit later on, all this is done. Everything I have to do against the GitHub API, I do it using GitHub script, which because it's just simpler. So all this is written in GitHub script, but then eventually it gets to some places where I start to use Perl later on. Let me see. Oh. For instance, in this case, you see, what I'm doing is I have a script in this repository, right? But I'm running this GitHub action in the student repository. So what I do is I download it with curl and run it directly with Perl, right? In this case, this is one of the steps. So I got like a huge amount of GitHub action. I will show them in action right here. So for instance, this one, you see that these are the last in the, but you see that initially what I do is I stack some information from the repository. The logs are not available anymore. Anyway, in many of these workflows, Perl is integrated either as a step or as a script that I use. I will show you this script I am talking about. It's right here. So this is the script that's downloaded and then run directly. What happens?
JJ and everyone, I apologize. The information I was given is different from what's on the schedule. We should all be in a plenary session now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, send me an email and I will send you all the information I have and the modules and everything. Just drop me an email or JJ Merelo Telegram. Bye. Thank you.